Hello friends, now we are entering into the last episode of the GIS series. In the last episode we have seen how GIS can be effectively utilized for solid waste management. In this episode we are discussing about the application of GIS, remote sensing and other allied disciplines for defense, security and also for crime mapping applications. So this episode has been titled as E-Suraksha, that is electronic Suraksha. So we know that defense people, the defense department, that they have been using this GIS technology for long, but that was not in the conventional GIS technology or the conventional GIS, the way of GIS what we use now, that is using all computers or digital maps and all, but as a part of mapping, as a part of map, there is usage of maps that has been used in the terrain, because the military applications are almost all related with different types of terrains. So they may need these maps, different types of maps are required, but at present the revolutionization or the revolutionizing the entire technology, the GIS has transcended all disciplines. So now the GIS technology is rapidly moving from its historic niche usage, that is within defense, to becoming a critical defense wide infrastructure, that is forming part of a defense wide infrastructure, that is coming out of, that is what the only use of GIS technology was in the form of maps and all, but now it has come out of that, that is from the historic niche usage within defense to it is becoming a defense wide infrastructure, that is GIS is becoming a part of that, or that itself is becoming the infrastructure for the entire defense system, for not only for a single country but for all countries. All nations are making use of that technology like this or in this aspect. So there is the fact is that defense operations of all kinds depend on a sound understanding of terrain or geography. So that is the reason why this GIS is becoming a defense wide infrastructure, that is knowledge of the terrain, knowledge of the geography of any terrain, where there is, especially in the case of security, national security, and also in the case of war fields and all, the knowledge of the terrain, knowledge of or the geography of the terrain should be easily understood, and that should be available for the country. So let it be the security of the country, or let it be the strategies that has to be utilized in a war field, whatever it is, the knowledge of the terrain, the geography of the terrain should be that should be in hand. So for that GIS will help, because GIS has the capacity of utilizing the spatial data and also the attribute data that are associated with the spatial components. So that is the reason why GIS is being utilized in both, that is for defense purpose as well as for security purposes. And also in this episode we will discuss about how that can be easily effectively utilized for crime mapping, that is in crime analysis how GIS will be utilized. So as far as this GIS is concerned, in the case of military operations, that is in the terrain, that is in understanding, we have told that is understanding the terrain, understanding the geography of the terrain is important, and it is just for understanding, not only understanding the location, that is GIS is not utilized only for understanding the location, but geography is a science that creates a framework for understanding the relationships between all entities in an area of interest. That is because if we are moving, that is if the entire, if there is the force is moving in a particular area, means they should be aware of what comes next, whether will there be a drainage, will there be a river network, or will there be a bridge, or what is the terrain about, whether it is a uphill or it is a downhill, it is a valley, what are all the surrounding terrain. So geography is providing all those information, and that should be provided to the people in the field also. So it is for that this GIS is utilized. So that is this GIS fosters the development of spatial knowledge from the flood of data, that is the development of spatial knowledge, that is a number of data sets are being generated, or that is being brought to the war front or into the military or the security forces, but getting spatial knowledge from the flood of data is important. We have already discussed that, that is GIS is making data to information, and in the next higher level of that processing of that information, knowledge is being created, that spatial knowledge is being created and being disseminated to the forces. So that is being carried out by the GIS technology. So what are all the capabilities? or what are all the areas as far as a military operation is concerned or a military setup is concerned. So, what are all the capabilities that use GIS? The first thing is the command and control part, that is command and control part, that will involve, definitely that will involve the communication part, and also the mutual communication may be required, and that is real time monitoring of the troops may be required. So, the command and control is first one. Then the second part is, or the second group of people within the military or the within the defense is, they utilize GIS is the defense mapping organizations. Then the base operations and facility management, that is that may be including the civilian group and all. So, base operations and facility management part. So, that may also include GIS, or the capabilities of GIS can be applied in this area also. Then force protection and security. Force protection and security means that is it is another area where this GIS can be effectively utilized. Then environmental security and resource management, that is the movement of the resources and how resource can be easily managed, that is the resource when it may be supplied to the different troops, different areas, how that can be effectively done, and the security is also an important thing, and environmental security is another area. Then definitely health and hygiene, that is another area where in the, let it be in the military operations also, in the defense forces also, health and hygiene is very important, and that should be given prime importance. So, for that also this GIS can be utilized. Then intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance systems. Intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance systems, definitely they will be utilizing that, and especially when we have the technologies like remote sensing, aerial photographs, and now the drone cameras or the shallow that is aerial photographs, that are the cameras that are mounted to drones and all, that is not that much as high as the aerial, that is that is the flights that is moving, that were earlier utilized for making the aerial photos. So, that intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance systems, that are also utilizing this GIS technology. Then definitely the logistics. Then military engineering group. Military engineering group can easily use that, or they will be they will be having an upper hand when they have the knowledge of their terrain, that is the GIS technology is with them. Military engineering group, they have already started using that. Then the mine clearance and mapping, that is in the war front, especially mine clearance and mapping, utilizing different technology, especially using remote sensors and all, locating the mines and clearance of that, that is using unmanned vehicles and all. So, mine clearance and mapping of which are all the areas where the mine clearance has already been done. So, that can be mapped, and for that GIS can be utilized. Then peacekeeping operations, for that also we need to know how the terrain is, what is the demography of the terrain, how that can be effectively done. Peacekeeping operations, that is after the war, if something happens or if some calamity has happened also, that is peacekeeping operation that can be effectively carried out if we are using the GIS technology or geoinformatics technology. Then definitely another area is the modeling, simulation and training. Modeling and simulation is required because if it is an unknown terrain, that is the only thing what we have is the maps. So, that should be made familiar to the troops who are actually moving in that terrain. So, modeling, so in what are all the possibilities that attack may come from what side. So, the visibility analysis and all kind of analysis can be done, and modeling and simulation can be easily carried out using these technologies. Then as a whole we can say the terrain analysis can be done. So, terrain analysis being done, then visualization of the entire thing. So, that is also easy. So, just by looking into a map and moving is different from the seeing the whole thing in a 3D and then moving to the real terrain. So, that will help in planning the movement, and that will give confidence also. So, visualization is another area. So, we can see that we can enumerate again a number of this can be added to this. So, the capabilities of GIS when that is utilized for military operations and also in defense as a whole, that is we can say that is innumerous. Then the closely associated term that is used in defense when we use the GIS is that geospatial intelligence, or that is called GeoInt. Geospatial intelligence is nothing but geospatial intelligence represents the complete integration of a nation's imagery and geospatial capabilities in support of defense and intelligence needs. So, that is, it is an umbrella term, that is geospatial intelligence or GeoInt is an umbrella term that represents the complete integration of a nation's imagery and geospatial capabilities. That is, its the imagery capabilities means that is whether we have the remote sensing capabilities or the aerial photograph, what are all the imagery capabilities. Then the geospatial capabilities, what are all the type of maps what we have, what is the resolution of that, and what is our organizational capacity, and how long we have been utilizing that. So the entire thing, that is called the geospatial capabilities. So when we use these things, that is with a complete integration of these two things, the nation's imagery and geospatial capabilities in support of defense and intelligence needs, then we can say that the nation is utilizing its geospatial intelligence. So as such, it marks the latest phase of a long process of drawing together previously separated domains such as map production and imagery intelligence, where GIS has long been a critical infrastructure. That is, earlier a particular organization may be entrusted to make maps, and imagery intelligence may be associated with some other organization, but now the integration is being done with GIS, and GIS has been utilized for long in that part as a critical infrastructure. So that is what we mean by geospatial intelligence. So what for this, or how the geospatial intelligence can help us, or a nation may be helped, or the nation's security will be enhanced by making use of the geospatial intelligence. That is, and it need not be in defense also, for many other purposes. An analyst can use geospatial intelligence or the GeoInt to identify the route of least resistance. In the case of military operations, that is to identify the route of least resistance for a military force in a hostile country, maybe a new terrain or another area in the same country, or a hostile country when they are into other countries. Then the same geospatial intelligence can be utilized to discover a pattern in the locations of reported burglaries. That is, we will be seeing that in the case of crime mapping. So reported burglaries can be in a neighborhood, or to generate map and comparisons of failing businesses. That is, even in commerce we can utilize this geospatial intelligence. Even though we bring that term, or we have coined that term in the case of military and defense, that geospatial intelligence can also be utilized in defense, in commerce also, in commercial and industrial purposes, for business applications also. That is, in the case of failing businesses that a company is likely to purchase. So what can be done, or in which way it can progress. So for that also geospatial intelligence is required. So geospatial intelligence is also the geospatial product of a process that is focused externally, designed to reduce the level of uncertainty for a decision maker. That is, the level of uncertainty can be narrowed down. That can be narrowed down as far as a decision maker is concerned, because he is in front of him, everything, spatial data, attribute data, everything for an entire area is brought in, and then the decision maker, it is easy, he can narrow down the possibilities. So the uncertainties can be easily avoided, or that can be easily narrowed down, and the decision can be properly taken, and that uses information derived from all sources. Utilizing all information from all sources, the geospatial intelligence helps the analyst to reach into a good decision, or a good decision can be taken by the person concerned, and that is where the geospatial intelligence will be working. And the importance or the significance of geospatial intelligence is, of course, in the case of military and defense. And as far as military operations are concerned, GIS technology is critical to net centricity for sharing, processing, modeling, analyzing and visualizing geospatial information and metadata. That is, we have already discussed the data about data is called metadata across defense networks and sub networks. That is, it is nothing but what we mean by this. That is, GIS, without GIS technology also this has been done. That is, commands were transferred, commands were communicated to the war front from the higher end authorities, and that were disseminated. But now a real time monitoring of the terrain, what is happening, what is happening now. So that can be that is an added advantage when we use that, the real time monitoring, and accordingly the commands can be communicated. So that is where the GIS technology is critical. So for sharing the data, for modeling and the real time analyzing of the data, then bringing the decisions and communicating that to the people. So that is an added advantage when we use GIS technology for military operations. GIS software is used to perform many tasks such as intelligence preparation of the battlefield, terrain analysis, mission planning and other defense related analysis, using the same geospatial data stored in a network accessible geodatabase. That is, when the network accessible geodatabase is created, a geodatabase is nothing but wherein all the data, that is including the spatial data and the attribute data, is stored, and that will be accessible to the concerned person. And it can be restricted also, whether it has to be restricted to the higher authorities, or it can be given available to all. So that can be decided, and if it is net access, that is why we say it is net centricity is essential, and GIS can be utilized for that. And in a network accessible geodatabase, when it is there, so people can make decisions based on that, and mission planning can be done accordingly, and the terrain analysis as a whole can be done. And so for everything we are using the same geospatial data stored in a network accessible geodatabase, and that is the upper hand when we use the GIS. And so in this case, that is an example. If you take an example, that is earlier how the cruise missile technology was there, and now how far it has how far it has improved, that is with the advantage, with the improvisation in the case of GIS and geoinformatics technology as a whole. So earlier in the case of that is cruise missile technology, that is we have in the case of navigation of the missiles, the type of technology that were used is known as INS, that is inertial navigation system. So no GPS, nothing was there, but with some available technology, that the technology that was used is called as inertial navigation system, or the INS. And now it has been improved from INS to terrain contour matching, or that is the acronym for that is TERCOM, that is terrain contour matching. So what is meant by that? So and the later this terrain contour matching was developed into the global positioning system, the exact location. So we'll come one by one. That is, the inertial navigation system was nothing but the cruise missiles. We know they are the guided missiles. So once the destination is fixed, the missiles themselves were going. There is no control was there. That is, it was provided. The warlord, that is what you can say, the missile was bringing the fire, this thing, and that was directly going, that is, it was guided through the technology that was inbuilt to the missile, and such missiles are the cruise missiles. And then so earlier it was the inertial navigation system, and then the terrain contour matching, some kind of maps were attached, and how the contour, the altimeters were attached to that. So the system, the missile were having some inbuilt maps. So that was matching with the contours or the terrain. The altimeter was attached, that is some altimeter may be inbuilt into these missiles, and they will be matching with the terrain, that is the map that is already built in the with the that is there in the missiles. So after matching the that is the maps and the terrain through which it is passing, it will be the missile was identifying the destination. So that was being done, that is called as the TERCOM. And then the technology, the improvement in the technology that has developed into the global positioning system. Now even TERCOM is not necessary, that is we can directly go for the global positioning system. That is, once the location or the destination is fixed with the latitude and longitude, the exact location is fixed, and that is transferred to the missile. So it will be directly going there and hitting the target. And now in the next phase it has further developed, and we have something, the technology called DSMAC or DSMAC, which stands for Digital Scene Matching Area Correlator. That is, high resolution satellite images are utilized, so with which it will be matching. Again, some digital altimeter and some other technology is utilized, and the missile is matching the scene by scene, that is over the terrain. When it passes through the terrain, the system, the missile is matching the terrain, that is the inbuilt map is there, high resolution satellite image is there. So the image is this thing that you can say, the missile is matching, or the technology that is there, that is matching the terrain. So exactly at the point, the destination, the missile is hitting. So that technology is known as DSMAC, or the Digital Scene Matching Area Correlator. So we can see that it has improved the cruise missile technology. Earlier it was with the INS, inertial navigation system, then it was brought into the terrain contour matching, or the TERCOM, then came the global positioning system, or the GPS, and that now it is the Digital Scene Matching Area Correlator. So the improvement in the geoinformatics technology has reflected in the cruise missile also. And now the TERCOM, in the case of TERCOM, the technology is in such a way that the multiple raster maps are stored So, the raster maps are stored within the TERCOM, which is associated with the missiles, and all the maps are with the same dimensions, and maps are stored as DEMs or digital elevation models of areas that have distinct topography. So, the digital elevation models are stored like maps. So, the distinct topography can be easily identified by the missiles. Then spatial resolution increases with each successive map, that is, as it goes, as it zoom in, when the target is reached or when it is nearing the target, that the zoom level, or what you can say, the spatial resolution is increased, which is called the precision funneling. So, that is the technology that is used with the TERCOM. And then when we compare these two, that is DSMAC and TERCOM, or DSMAC and TERCOM, in the case of TERCOM, that is TERCOM was having an accuracy of 30 to 100 meters and must obtain data for entire land surface of the earth. So, it should obtain the data for entire land surface of earth, and it is very inefficient over flat areas because there is a circuitous route necessary. That is one disadvantage with this TERCOM. And in the case of DSMAC, high resolution imagery is used, that is spatial and radiometric resolution is very high in the case of the imagery that is utilized for DSMAC, and right time of the day, that is correct range of contrast is taken, or that will be achieved by the DSMAC. So, that is DSMAC and TERCOM can be identified. And in the case of TERCOM, radar altimeter is used to compare deviation of terrain with the stored data. That is there any deviation, because the data has been stored in the case of TERCOM, and radar altimeter is used to change, is there any change in the data. So, that is checked with the radar altimeter. That is how TERCOM was working, and this is how the technology has improved, or the application of geoinformatics in the missile technology. And in the next generation missile, which is known as JASSM or JASSM, which is nothing but Joint Air Surface Standoff Missile. So, the navigation is by means of INS as well as GPS, and in the terminal phase it is an infrared seeker is also there, and real time target correlator is also there. So, that is the next level of next generation missile is there. So, again we can see that in all this the technology utilized is all geospatial ones, that is for navigation INS and GPS is there, and infrared seeker and real time target correlator is used, and it is much more precise than the technology what we have used earlier. So, that is the next generation part. So, these are all the areas wherein for military operations will be, that is the GIS has been utilized, and for security purposes definitely all the technologies, that is high resolution satellite images, GPS trackers, and now which are glued to the mobile phones also, that are all utilized. So, in this way, that is for military operations, geoinformatics is helping in a long way, I mean in a very big way, that is geoinformatics is helping the military operations. And in the next part we will be discussing about the application of GIS for crime analysis, how that can be done, and how crime analysis can be done by making use of GIS. Is there any relationship between the crimes that is being done by the culprits, and is there any terrain influence for that, or is there any geography component which can be mapped and utilized for analysis? That is what we will be seeing there. And when we see the crime analysis, there are 5 types of crime analysis that has been identified by the researchers, and first one is the intelligence analysis. So, in this case, in the case of intelligence analysis, it is the study of organized criminal activity in order to assist investigative personnel in linking people, events and property. So, that is the first type of crime analysis, that is intelligence analysis, that is the study of organized criminal activity in order to assist investigative personnel in linking people, events and property. So, here the linkage between people, events and property will be investigated. So, such analysis of crime, that is that kind of crime analysis known as intelligence analysis. And in the second type, criminal investigative analysis, that is the second type. Here the study of serial criminals, victims and or crime scenes, as well as physical, socio-economic, psychological and geographic characteristics to develop patterns that will assist in linking together and solving current serial criminal activities, or that is also known as the profiling, that we will see in detail, that is the profiling part. So, that is a second type, that is criminal investigative analysis. And the third type is another type of crime analysis, that is known as tactical crime analysis. The tactical crime analysis is the study of recent criminal incidents and potential criminal activity by examining characteristics such as how, when and where the activity has occurred, in order to assist the problem solving by developing patterns and trends, identifying leads, suspects and clearing cases. So, that is the tactical crime analysis, that is when, where and how. So, that is there again we know that is how, when and where. These are all the areas where GIS has got a major edge. And the fourth type is strategic crime analysis, that is the study of crime and law enforcement information integrated with the socio-economic and spatial factors to determine long-term patterns of activity, to assist in problem solving as well as to research and evaluate responses and procedures. Here also it is identifying the patterns by integrating the socio-economic and spatial factors of that will be assisting the law enforcement. That is the strategic crime analysis. And the fifth one is the administrative crime analysis. It is nothing but it is the presentation of interesting findings of crime research and analysis based on legal, political and practical concern to inform audiences within law enforcement administration, city government and citizens. So, that is the administrative crime analysis, because in this part people may be taken into consideration and inputs may be taken from the public also. So, that is the administrative crime analysis. So, these are all the different types of analysis, and when we go through these 5 types of analysis, we can see that there are in all these cases they were finding, or the people, the detectives or the police people or the law enforcement people, they were all looking for some kind of patterns, and is there any geographical influence. So, it is where the GIS will come into picture. So, why the law enforcement group or the law enforcement departments the world over have turned to GIS is that is recently or very recently the police people or the peacekeeping or the law makers, or what you can say the law keeping people, they were all getting what you can say number of phone calls. So, the increases in the number of calls for police service and in crime in general, that is the reporting to the police as well as the number of crimes have also increased, and that have led to a greater need to sort, organize, analyze and disseminate data. So, we know that it is the capability of the GIS is that it can analyze, it can sort out, it can organize and disseminate the data set. So, this was the point, it was the point in time where criminal justice agencies have been turning to GIS. That is the capability of that capability of analyzing, organizing and disseminating data of the GIS that has made, or that was what being utilized. So, how it is related, how GIS and crime analysis is related, because crime follows a geographic pattern, that is important. So, even we may not be noticing that crime follows a geographic pattern. Since there is a pattern to criminal events, we have the ability to model and possibly predict crime. So, we need a tool that can incorporate both spatial and attribute data on criminal events. So, we need a tool, and GIS is such a tool, that is a tool which can handle both spatial and attribute data on criminal events. So, using this tool which is GIS, we can identify problem areas, produce maps for officers to use in the field, keep track of particular offenders and assist in solving crimes. That was the reason why GIS was selected for this. And we know that GIS is helpful in mapping the different entities as different layers like roads, bus routes, bus stops, rapid transit, that can be easily done in a GIS for making network analysis of crime possible on levels not possible before. That is, for example, there is a crime that is being there, which was repeatedly being done in an area. And what is the reason for that? That is the rapid transit areas that has to be identified. That is, suppose the culprits are coming, or the thieves or the robbers, they are coming over vehicles and they are just disappearing after the crime. So, which are all their routes in which they come. So, for that a network analysis of the crime is required. So, that can be easily done when we map the roads, best stops, and all the areas, the crime spots and all. So, that can only be done making use of GIS. So, the use of layers in a GIS allows the criminal investigator to easily add, remove data to the analysis. That is one important thing. That is, if we want, okay, this aspect has to be considered when you are analyzing a particular crime. If we say this particular aspect is also to be included, so that layer can also be included, or that can be added as a layer by making use of a GIS. So, that is where GIS allows the criminal investigator to easily add or remove data. So, that will enhance the capability of the GIS. The technology or the analysis, the type of analysis that is being used by GIS for crime analysis is called as geographic profiling. Geographic profiling is a type of analysis. So, in geographic profiling is a method of studying crime that uses the geographic locations of serial criminal offences to determine the most probable neighborhood in which the serial offender resides. This technique is most often applied to cases of serial murder, sexual assault, arson and robbery. And why geographic profiling is used is because geographic profiling uses the combination of geographic crime site information and the known propensities of serial criminals in their selection of a target victim and location. The output of the procedure will be a map representing the probability density of the offender's place of residence, and that means that is they are bringing, or they are utilizing, that is the result or the outcome of a research. That is, a research has theorized that when offenders travel to commit crimes, that they often travel to neighborhoods or neighbor areas that are similar to those that they live in. That is one important research finding. And research has also shown that burglars will commit crimes in neighborhoods similar to their own, so that they will fit in and not look out of place when they look for victims. So, these are the two research findings that is being utilized when we use GIS for this, or when we use the technique of geographic profiling. That is, in geographic profiling, what is being done is geographic profiling uses the combination of geographic crime site information and the known propensities of serial criminals in their selection of a target victim and location. So, that is the location of the offender as well as the location of the crime site, how far it is nearby, or what is the travel time. If the offender is coming that is using a two-wheeler or by train or any other vehicle or whatever it is, so how far, and what is the pattern in which that has been carried out. So, that is it means that the geography of the crime sites and the psychology of the offenders, that has got a direct link. So, that research finding has been made, that has been utilized in this geographic profiling. And then the output of the geographic profiling will be a map, or which will be depicting the chances for further attacks or whatever it is, that is some kind of serial attacks or serial offences that is being carried out by the culprits or the offenders. So, it is where this demographic analysis or the profiling part or the demographic analysis of the profiling will be utilized. So, this is how the crime analysis is utilizing the GIS technology, that is, by taking into consideration all the geographic components. So, what is the geography, what is the demography, then taking into consideration the demographic details of the offenders. So, they are all bringing together, then that will be merged over, or that will be overlaid over the city map, which is showing all the crime location, crime sites, the police station limits and all. So, it will be providing a map where what is the chances, or which are all the hotspots for crime, or which has been the hotspots for crime. So, the police people or the law enforcement authorities can narrow down and they can bring in, or they can bring the culprits to the that is in front of law. So, that is how the GIS is utilizing. So, these are all the areas where GIS is effectively utilized. So, in this episode we have seen how GIS can be utilized for terrain analysis in the case of military operations, national security and all, and also we have seen how GIS technology, geoinformatics technology can be effectively utilized in crime analysis, so that the offenders can be easily brought into the law, in front of the law. So, this is how, so this is the last episode of the geoinformatics series that we have been discussing. So, thank you for watching.